Then we're back. I like this hook. You got a book you want to tell us about? Well, let's talk. There's no other place to do it. Only on Catch the Craze. Catch the Craze. Welcome to Catch the Craze podcast. I am your host with the most, Sam the Crazy Man Vera, and I am with...
Wow, George, the dreamer, Medina.
Go, Georgie. It's your birthday. Go, Georgie.
Wow, look at you surprising people on the second, no, third show of the month. You always got something up your sleeve, Steve.
Tricky.
Tricky. Wow, that's nice.
You like that, right?
Very nice.
That's
Simple drum beats.
George
You're trying to
like,
get me. You're trying to get me into
yeah,
that.
right. But he still didn't say dreamer. Yeah,
I
I was
didn't?
going to have to freestyle for you.
Oh, you should.
Yeah, I should have, right?
All right, you should. Why not? Why not? So what's up, man?
Oh, welcome. What episode is this?
So this will be the fourth episode of because this month has 5 Fridays.
Yes.
People, I'm sure, are happy about that.
Chico Fridays.
5. So this will be January 24th. It's the 4th episode. Next month will be the last episode of the month, and then we'll go into February. But yeah, this will be we're getting more and more into the beginning of the year, and so far so good.
So far so good. Who did we have on last week?
Last week we had Daphne.
Oh,
Lang.
look at that. See that?
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, Daphne. That was good.
I'm trying to throw him off.
That was a good.
It's
It's like I'm really there.
Yeah, you're there. I'm not. It's like I forgot my passport.
It's like I'm not.
He went to the future, came back. I'm still like, how do I get there?
Well, you would have come back from your trip.
Word.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a fantastic trip.
I would. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it will be. Oh, it was. Whatever.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yes.
So what's going on, man? Today.
Today.
What do we have on the show today? We have a great artist by the name of Jun Nunez.
Yes.
He's a graphic artist. He designs T-shirts. He's worked in the industry for a while. I was looking at some of these posters. He's got some really cool.
He has some cool stuff.
Some cool posters for that he does for some bands and stuff. He's done one for a band called Poison.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool that I saw there. It's a UK band.
Yeah, some on the home screen. There it is. Yeah.
So he's got a lot of cool stuff, man. Yeah, he's very, very talented guy. He's got a book called Cabeza. I met him a few years ago. Actually, me and Anibal, I think Anibal had a piece. They had a book called Fuacata. Yeah. He had a book called Fuacata with another friend of his, Shav. He's cool dude too. I want to get him on the show as well. And actually, Anibal did a piece for them, and it was a really cool book. So he's done a few things. He works in the industry, so that's cool. I wanted to talk to him a little bit about that and how he got put on. But yeah, it's cool. Look at that. I like the process.
So it's interesting. What I noticed, what he does is the texturing in pencil, and then I guess he must lower the opacity in the paint when he goes into Photoshop to be able to let those tones come through.
Because they come through anyway, right?
Yes.
Let me see the finished piece.
Yeah, where's the finished piece? See?
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's a good question to ask.
Wow.
His process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, it looks like he does. It looks like he just drops it and then he just the colors over his shading that he does in the red pencil. Yeah, it's cool.
Pretty fantastic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So,
and
like we've been doing for the last few weeks, we've got a new segment on the show. It's called Get Your Meds.
Get Your Medinas.
And this, you should just record that. Put a little sound there for us.
Get your meds, baby. Medina.
You miss that life, don't you? You miss that performing life.
Yes.
So today's topic is: Are you born with it?
Are you born with it? What are you like with a rash or something?
Yeah, you're born with it. With that, Jonathan Syfax, very good friend of mine. Big shout out to the Syfaxius. Yeah.
When I think of Jonathan,
You think of babies? So we always get into conversations about things, and one of the conversations we were having recently was whether or not people are born leaders or if you're made a leader, right? And so I was like, oh yeah, that's a good question. So you Google Psychology Today, right? It said the most basic and most often question asked about leadership, okay, is are you born with it or is it made? And it says apparently you're mostly made. Leaders are mostly made.
Right.
The best estimates offered by research is that leadership is about 1/3 born and 2/3 made. Okay. But there are traits that you have to have, okay, when to be, I guess, a strong leader or a successful leader.
Right.
And one of them is extroversion.
Right.
Extroverts make better leaders. Assertiveness, risk takers, intelligent, and not IQ intelligent, but like common sense intelligence, aware of,
like instinctual.
Yeah, not in general with IQ, but social intelligence, you know, an understanding of a social situation and processes.
Right.
And so so they go into this whole thing and they have they had a whole list of some of the things that an expert needs. I mean, a leader needs to have. And I found this on Forbes. They had a pretty cool article. One of the things that a leader should have is she should be a master communicator. Okay, and it doesn't mean that he needs to talk a lot.
Right.
A lot of that is listening.
Right.
Communicating. Part of communication is listening.
Yes.
Listening to other people, understanding, what it is that their needs are,
right, so
that you can fulfill them or help them out with whatever they have to do. And I'm sure, and we were talking prior to the show, and you have obvious, you are a leader in your role in your 9 to 5, right? So
about me. He's talking about me.
So I'm sure you can attest to some of these things. So I'm going to run through the list, and you tell me whether or not you think that these are things that you kind of find that you do need. You need to be an expert, okay? And when I say expert, I mean not knowing everything, but being an expert at one particular field or skill set,
right?
Okay, and then share that knowledge so that people know that you're the person to go to for advice. Yep. Become the person known for delivery solutions, focus on the results, and do what is necessary to achieve them.
Right.
Okay. Another one is to be curious. The best leaders are always learning. Ask a lot of questions. Seek out knowledge in as many ways as you can. The more you know, the more prepared you'll be for whatever comes your way. Be a teacher, not a boss. Okay? The best way to demonstrate your expertise is by teaching others. A leader establishes themselves and gains respect by sharing knowledge and not by being a dictator.
Wow.
Yeah. You like I did that?
Yes, I see that. Yeah, see,
I said dictator.
That emphasis. It's like when I put the emphasis on acquiesce. Right? And he said acquiesce.
You know what I mean. Then it says, ask for help when you need it. Great leaders know when to turn to someone for help. You can't lead alone. Asking for help does not make you any less of an expert or a leader. You will gain more respect by asking for help when you need it than if you would try to single-handedly solve something and not succeed.
Because no man is an island.
There you go.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to fail. And this is the one that we were talking about that was big. Don't be afraid to fail. It's okay not to succeed 100% of the time. Rather, it's encouraged. And then there's a quote. They had a quote from Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, this time more intelligently.
Yes, that goes back to that learning.
There you go. So that goes back to that learning. So making mistakes is one of the best ways to learn and grow, and failure should be looked at as a stepping stone to success.
Yes. So
what do you think? Do you agree with those?
Indubitably.
Yes, so you think that a lot of those things are necessary?
I do.
When leading.
I do. I think it's about being a servant leader, which is one of the greatest missing components in any business environment, because people think leadership is about results through data, but it's results through people. How do people get results? Education. Where do you get the education from? The person responsible for that team, right? So how do you know they're going to be successful? Well, the base determines how much you've committed to that team, to the health of that team. So I always say this: my failures of success are based on my team's failures or success. So that's my measurement for me as a leader. I've always been responsible for people since a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, when I met you,
Yes.
you were in a leadership role
Yes.
at your job, right? When we first met, yeah.
Yes. So for
So
me,
you've always had a team
Yes.
of people.
part of my journey, and we'll go in. Where's the topics? Where's the topics?
Oh,
I think it's
oh.
I think it's like what is it? Story time. So anyway, I had to do it.
Okay, go for it.
Do it. So part of my journey, I've been a student my entire life, and I still am, and that's why I've grown as an influential leader. Because I've always said to people, no matter what field position I've held, and I've done a lot of different things in the retail world, from security to operations to merchandising to store management, to regional, I've always said I'm a coach. So whenever everyone said, what's your position? I said coach. And they go, that's a position? Yes. And they look at me with a third eye, right? And for me, it's about I'm responsible for people. Yeah. So one of the things that I learned early on was humility. It ain't about me, right? It becomes about me when my team's failing, because then that self-reflection comes into play. So what I've learned is, it's a hard lesson to learn if you're not willing to learn. When I had early failures, the first reaction is to blame everybody else, right? And then I realized that that's a lonely road. And I had to say, well, and one person said to me, who's responsible for the team? That's all I needed to go back and say, damn, I failed. So from that point on, I said, all right, I'm going to learn from all of them, the best leaders that I've had and the worst leaders. And I had a gentleman by the name of John Bias. He was the first person who mastered the art of listening to learn, not listening to respond. Mm-hmm. And he really saw me and listened to me as an individual. And he was able to guide me. He was one of the biggest, the first turning point in my career. So I realized then that I not only, through John Bias, I not only had to listen to what was being said, but I had to be able to hear what wasn't being said through body language, right? Because someone can tell you, say, hey, is everything okay? Yeah. Well, based on that response, it's not okay. So what do you do with that information? Oh, you can either be a manager and say, all right, cool. Well, if you need anything, let me know. And you walk away.
Or go do this. I need you to do that. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And you don't even notice that this guy's like, something's wrong with him, but you don't care. All right, I need to get that done. I need to get that done.
Right. Or you say, hey, Tom, let's talk for a minute. Step into my office. What's going on? And one of the things I do with and I'll give you an example. I have an HR manager that I can see her body language. She just didn't seem there. And she seemed overwhelmed, but her pride she was going to let me know that she was overwhelmed. So I called her to my office. I said, all right, here it is. This is the safe zone. We're not leaving this room until we figure out what's going on. You don't seem happy. You seem overwhelmed. Something's going on. And then she broke down, right? A lot of things happen in the personal life. A lot of things happen at the work. She is over, blah, blah, blah. And it came out, right? And it's like, all right, so let's see what's on your plate. What is that we can lay off? What can we delegate? How can I help you through that? And that's part of that whole process, because you don't want to see your people overwhelmed. You don't want to see them treading water, trying to barely make it to shore. You want to be the lighthouse. You're responsible to make sure that you always have that light on, and you're guiding them to shore. So I think it comes back humility. When you said being an expert, I believe I don't have to know everything, but I need to understand what my team is responsible for and how to best position them to be able to maneuver in their roles, right? So I have to understand what applications that they're being asked to use. I need to understand the fundamentals of those applications. I need to understand what are the tasks that they're challenged with, so I can be able to guide them. But I need to have experts who are smarter than me in those positions, right? So they're going to be the masters of their domain But I understand the fundamentals. I have regular touch bases, so I understand where we're going, and I can steer them in the right direction. And I use their information to guide me in my decision-making process. That's critical. Yeah. So one of the things I have 3 senior leaders on my team, and one of the things is I give them the stage is theirs, right? I'm sitting up in the bleachers and I'm watching the show, right? And I'm there if they need me. Mm-hmm. But you don't hire people to put in positions to micromanage, because you smother them and you lose them that way. So I give them the platform to shine, right? Some people have a hard time understanding that concept because they've been in an environment of business where they're not allowed to shine. They have to always run something by the boss, right? So I always say, is this within your means? Is this within the scope of what you're responsible for? Is your decision in the best interest of the organization? Then go with it. Let me know how, at the end, just say, hey, by the way, this was the challenge. This is my solution. This is the result. Right. Boom. Yeah. Now, if it didn't work, all right, why didn't it work? What were the opportunities? Where were the misses? What can we do differently? That's the education process. Right. So you got to be willing to fail. Shit. I can tell you right now how many times I failed.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what happened?
You know what I mean?
Something happened to the equipment?
You know what I mean? So, you got to be able to, I got to the group. You got to be willing to fail. You have to, and see it for what it is. Don't make the same mistakes twice.
Yeah.
But, and at the same time, I'll give you another example, another story.
Are we getting 2 stories today?
Yeah, I had to do a research. And investigate some stuff. So, and this is where I leaned on my previous investigative background and my security background. And I just asked critical questions, open-ended critical questions. And the rest of the time, I would ask one question, I sit back and listen for 10 minutes at a time. And then when I see a pause, then I ask the follow-up question, and I sat back and I listened. And one person said to me, wow, you mastered the art of Wicklander. Wicklander is a certification for investigators in the retail environment and all types of security. If you're an investigator, you're responsible for interviewing employees. You have to go through the certification. And it said, you mastered the art of, and I haven't used it in a long time. But one of the things is listening to learn. Because what happens is when silence speaks volumes. When you're paused and you're silent, people don't know what you don't know. So they just start talking, right? And that's when you learn, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing. Learn to shut up. Learn to just shut up, listen, watch, observe, and then figure out where to go from that point on. Don't have predetermined scripts. Don't have a plan in place. Because I can tell you right now, I walk into a room and I was like, this is the direction I'm going to go. And after the first question, I said, no, I need to go this way instead. Because you realize that if I went with my original plan, I'm not going to get the result I'm looking for. It's going to go south. So
but do you think that part of that is you walk in there with a plan, though? You do walk in there with a plan, but you have to be flexible enough to be able to deviate from the plan. Yes. Because if you walk into a situation, I think, without any plan,
right,
I think you're setting yourself up to fail.
Yes.
So you do have to, and I think that you do have to have a plan in hand. You have to say, okay, I'm going to go in there with this mindset. Oh, wait a minute, they just gave me something. Okay, I got to be able to navigate and move away and do this. Right. And if you don't have that capability, you're kind of stuck. Yes. But part of that leadership quality, do you think that you're born, or do you think you can make somebody? Like, can you find somebody, a kid or somebody who you see is quiet, doesn't really speak too much? Do you think you can shape that kid into a leader?
No, I think you can. I think the person has to be willing to want. The person has to have the desire to lead, and they have to be a sponge. I can't just say I'm going to make that person a leader. Mm-hmm. You got to want it because it's going to be 20% me and 80% you. So it's going to be the part of the coach is to challenge the mindset, is to challenge your fears, right? Is to poke at your areas of opportunity, to identify where your most weak is at and just target that to the point where you're saying you're picking on me, right? I hate this guy. I always say, every time I inherit a new team, I say, one of the things I say is like, look, I'm an acquired taste. You're going to hate me before you love me. You're not going to understand what I'm trying to do. My intent is pure. It's in your best interest. My motivation is intentional. I will intentionally target your areas of opportunity because I see your potential. You're going to make a choice with that information. You're going to say, you know what, I can't work for this guy. You know, he doesn't like me. Or you're going to say, damn, I have some work to do. I have some work to do because you have to put in the 80%, right? So I think
what's your outcome? Like, how long does that usually take before how long does it take before they either love what you're doing and they get it and now they're moving forward, or how long does it take before they say, well, I hate this guy, I'm out of here, I can't deal with him?
The first 90 to 120 days is the head junk phase, right? So the first 90 days, this guy doesn't know, he doesn't know how we operate, whatever, he doesn't understand the business, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, when did I get it? He's just like everybody else, he's not gonna last, right? So the first 90 days, the head junk. Then second, oh, he's still here. Oh my God, I gotta meet with him. Jeez, right? So there's all that other is the anxiety phase. Now I have to live with this guy because he's still here. He's not going anywhere. Then you have the extra 90 days, right? So now you do it in quarters, right? First quarter, second quarter, and in 3-month cycles. Then you get to that point where it's like, all right, maybe there's something to it. I will try, but I don't know how much I'm willing to give.
Now, this is you or this is the employee?
This is the team that I'm responsible for.
Okay,
That's
okay.
That's what happens.
That's
the phase, right? So, it's he's not going to last. It's the head junk phase. It's well, maybe, but I don't know. We'll see, because I think my way's still better. And then there's the final 90 days when they start seeing the benefit of those 9 months. And they say, well, we're getting traction.
That's the thing. They have to see. They have to see results.
Yes.
If they don't see results, it doesn't matter. They're not going to.
If anyone tells you they can do it overnight, they're full of crap. It takes at least a year before you can turn the team and create and start influencing the direction of the culture that you want to see happen, right? And the team dynamic that you want to see happen. But it takes a lot of hard work on your part because you're on stage.
Well, yeah, I mean, as a leader of a team, you have to be able. And see, and now they had other. I found other things that they also said were key things here. For example, keep promises.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Never make promises you're not sure you can keep. Nothing kills your credibility quicker than a breached promise or unfulfilled expectations. So if you make a promise to an employee or to somebody who you're mentoring, you have to keep that promise, and that's part of leadership.
And that goes back to being on stage.
Right.
Right. So you're being watched from the moment you open that door. They're hanging on every word and they're looking for the inconsistencies.
Right.
They're looking for the hypocrisy.
You have to be consistent.
They're looking to see is what your words, do they mirror your actions?
Right.
You're saying we need to overcommit, but you're out the door by 3:00 and everybody's still in the building. Oh, well, we're going to open up the store early because we need to drive the business, and we're going to open up on the holidays, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but you're not around.
But you're not there. Yeah,
right?
That's big, dude.
Right.
That's big.
So one of the things that I always say is if because my full-time job in retail, every time I inherit a new team, I know that I have to sacrifice a lot. So the first conversation I have at home is like, look, you're not going to see me. I'm going to be working Thanksgiving. I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to do this. Why do you have to do it? You're the GM. That's the reason why I have to do it, because I need to set the tone. If I needed to have the team do an overnight because we're doing some major move, I'm there with them. Why? Because I want to set the pace of how to get it done.
Yeah.
So I'm with the planning phase. I'm at the execution phase. Because you're on stage. The first year, you have to make sure you set the example in everything that you're expecting to see from your team.
Right.
You demonstrate that to them so they understand what it looks like. And then you can back off that second year because they don't want you to do it because we got this, boss. Relax. But that first year, they want to see what you're made of. Put your money where your mouth is. But then once you've gained their loyalty, once you've gained their trust, they're going to say, well, you know what? This guy really does have our best interest in mind. You know what? We got this.
Well, and that's about building a culture, right?
Yes.
Because you don't, the last thing you want is to have a cancer in your culture, in your organization. So say for example you have a guy that never shows up on time or whatever, and you forgive it and you're okay with it, right? Now everybody's gonna say, dude, yeah, we can do whatever we want, it doesn't matter. So you have to set that tone so that even so when you're gone, somebody else can say, nah, dude, this is how we do things here.
Yes.
Because even though you're not there, you have built that team so strong and you have made such an impression that everybody else on that team now understands that that's not how we do things.
Yeah.
We don't slack.
Right.
If you're going to be here, you're going to work.
Yes.
Even when you're not around. And then that's when you've truly found that
Yes.
you made an impact on these people.
So one of the things I always say, because I worked for maniacal bosses before, where they call you on your days off, they disrupt you on your vacation, they make you cancel vacations, they don't give you your personal days, all this crazy stuff. I've worked with all those types of bosses. So I have a rule. I said, when you're off, you're off. I don't expect to hear from you. You're not going to hear from me. It's not going to happen. So don't call. Don't call your team when you're off. You're off, right? I respect your time, right? And enjoy it. That's what the time is there for. But when you're on, I don't want you to put in 14 hours. I want you to give 100% in the time that you're allotted. So be effective in the time that you have, so that way you're not taking anything home, so that way nothing's spilling over to the next day, right? So, and if you do that, and your schedule is 9 to 5, 5 o'clock, get out, right? But if you're not in line, you have to be able to keep up with the team, right? So once you get the team humming, a perfect example, I inherited a team it was a broken environment on all levels. Never passed an audit, highest shrink in the organization, worst customer service scores, standards were horrible, damages were out of control. It took a year. A really hard year.
Yeah.
Once I started, that first year was just getting the team right? The second year was now targeting areas of business that I wanted to grow and teaching the managers how to lead. And then years 3 and 4, we were number 1 in the company year after year, right? And we passed every audit, lowered our shrink every year, increase our profitability, all these things, right? So when we went to support other stores, my team went to support other stores, people in the stores were saying, why do you guys work so hard? They go, what do you mean? It's like, you're doing all this stuff. No, that's how we always work.
Yep.
Because the culture there, they didn't have an expectation, right? So that's why we were supporting those stores, because it were broken. We were there. So now we have this team with this mindset. It's like, no. So they moved at such a fast pace. They were so efficient with the time that they had. Nothing ever spilled over. But it takes commitment.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people need to understand. It takes a lot of soul searching on your part, a lot of frustrating nights where you're like, what, am I wasting my time? And nothing's working, nothing's sticking. You got to be able to go back. One of the things that I have in my command center, in my office, I have dry erase boards. And I have things plotted out, right? And I have motivational quotes, but I also have things laid out. And I use that as coaching when I'm coaching my team. It's like a playbook. And so I use their words against them. So when they're faced with roadblocks and they don't know how to overcome the roadblock and they try to lean on me for the answers, I have them tell me what it is that you're struggling with, and I put it up on the board. Okay, so tell me about the most influential leader in your life, or who has the biggest impact on your life. Why? What are some of the characteristics? And we put them on the board. And what were some of the challenges that they face? Have you ever witnessed it? And we start going back and we start linking it back to their words. Right? And then they go back and they're like, all right, so based on what you just told me, what you've learned throughout your life, do you think you have a plan to accomplish this? Yeah. Yeah, what is it? And then they start talking. So you never needed me. Right? So they did.
Right, they do.
But I put it back on them. So they're like, shit, I did it without him. They don't realize that session was an education for both of us, because I'm learning more about their DNA, what makes them tick, just by asking them critical questions. But they're learning about themselves. Like, shit, I always had it in me. I just didn't give myself enough credit.
Right.
So our job is to pull out the best within them, and I think that's what an effective leader does.
Yeah. No, they that's definitely some of the things that are on here. The other one, and I found this one interesting. It said dress to influence.
Yes.
It says don't dress to impress, dress to influence.
Yes.
That means making sure your appearance is consistent with your personal and professional brand.
Yes.
Begin by asking yourself how a leader with your aspirations should appear to others. So if you're in a corporate environment, or if you're your position, you dress the way you have to dress, and that's how you influence everybody else. Everybody, listen, I dress this way. I expect everybody to dress,
Yes.
in a similar fashion. If you're in a creative environment, or if you're in a more laxed environment, then you dress that way.
Right.
But don't mix the two. Just because you're going to work,
Right.
and you say you're going to a paint studio, don't wear a suit, dude.
Right.
Like, we're not. That's not what we're doing here.
Right.
So dress to influence. So as the leader, you set that tone.
Yes.
If I look this way, then you guys should look not exactly like me, because everybody should have their own personalities. Right. But this is what I'm expecting. So let's.
This is the basic fundamentals of what
right.
what we're trying to convey to our audience.
Exactly, to the audience, to your
customer,
whoever it is. Another one was treat your team as you expect them to treat customers.
Yes.
So treat them the way you expect them to treat the customers, the audience, whoever it is.
In order to teach them how to do that, you have to teach them how to respect each other first.
Right.
Right. So the culture will significantly impact the customer's experience. Right. So one of the things that is a requirement, and it's a non-negotiable, is when you walk in the building, everybody you come across, good morning, how are you? Right. I don't care who you are. Good morning, how are you? Morning rallies where the team's huddled up, and they're not talking about numbers. They're talking about values, right? Stories. They're doing contests and getting the team pumped like a football rally. Because if you respect and you take care of each other as a team, it's almost like a family, right? So you have your primary family members, right? You, your mom, your brothers, your sisters, your father, whatever. But then Thanksgiving comes and you're inviting guests over for the holidays, right? So that experience, their experience is going to be based on the culture that exists in that household, right? So you have to make sure that you have a healthy, respectful, supportive, and nurturing culture in order for that customer to benefit from that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's weird because you think that people don't, it doesn't matter. They don't see it. They do see it. They see it all the time, and they understand what, you have to create that environment where, like, if you're cursing at an employee, what do you think that employee is going to do to anybody who's below them?
Right.
And it's weird because it's almost like children, right? And then, you don't call your employees children, but it's almost like that's the role you take. They almost look at you as the father, almost, like, we got to go over there and we got to do this and we got to do that. But yeah, it's interesting because the last thing was also ask rather than wait for feedback, which is what you were talking about. Ask them questions, let them give you the feedback, and then let them answer their own questions in a sense. Yes. So I think that's pretty much leadership. Yes. And I think that if anybody out there feels like, I'm not a leader, I can't lead, you can. It's just like you said, wanting it, making sure that you follow those things, that you think of yourself that way. Am I knowledgeable? Can I teach? Am I going to listen? Am I going to be respectful? And all of these things, am I curious enough? You got to want to know more and things of that nature. So I think that anybody can learn to be that as long as they have those attributes, or they want it.
Yes.
They want it. Be assertive. Know what you know it, and understand that you know it. Like, be confident. Try to be as confident as you can. Some people aren't, but I think assertiveness is important. Be intelligent and not so much know it all,
right?
But more understand the situations. Be mindful of what's going on.
Be credible.
And aware. Be credible. Be credible. Take risks. Don't be afraid to fail. Just do it.
Yes.
Take that risk. And I think that that sums it all up.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And one of the things that I like I said, I'm a student of the game. You have to constantly learn. So I always listen to a lot of motivational podcasts, and I'm always reading. Like, one of the best books I've ever read was The Leader Who Had No Title by Robin Sharma. And it was about the influence, how to influence others, right? And the power of influence. And I think people don't recognize that. But if you truly want to be a successful leader, an influential leader, a respected leader, one thing you have to understand is you're going to give more of yourself than what you're going to get. You have to be selfless in your acts, and it has to be genuine. People will see if it's false, if it's something that you have to do versus wanting to do. But know this, that most of it, it's that first go round is a thankless journey. and it takes at least a year, especially if you're inheriting a new team. But you're going to be giving more of yourself. You're going to be giving. It's a mental game. It's a physical game. You'll be more frustrated more than you will be pleased in the beginning. Once you've overcome that and you have that foundation, you have that team where trust is mutual. Yeah. Right. Then you start benefiting from those commitments, but it's going to take time.
Absolutely. And there it is. That's Get Your Meds. If you guys have any ideas for topics that, Sam and I can discuss, and just send me a message on my Instagram. I'm at Medina Whip.
On the gram.
And just hashtag it with Get Your Meds, and then, we'll do the little research we do. I mean, it's not, crazy research, but it's a good time for us to talk and discuss, and, we can all learn from some of this stuff. I mean, leadership I think it's a very important thing to talk about when you're a creator, because you are a leader. I mean, you're creating your own thing, and you're trying to push that forward. You have to be assertive, and you have to be, a good communicator, and you have to have all of these attributes that make you a leader. Yes. You can't just, we always say this, you can't just sit behind that table at a convention and not talk to anybody.
Nope.
You can't, unless you have like a great hype man with you, and you're gonna let him do the talking and do what he's got to do. But like this, you definitely have to, kind of step out of your own shell and do what you got to do.
You have to be uncomfortable.
You do. You have.
It's not just about making your team uncomfortable. You have to be uncomfortable because they're going to challenge you.
Right.
They're going to get under your skin.
Right.
Well, they're going to push you to see what your breaking point. Mm-hmm. Can we break him? When you inherit a new team, they're like, what can we get away with? Right. You got to know that. That's the natural human thing. What are you made of? You have to earn your keep. Right? It's just not about them because of your title.
Yeah.
Now you have to earn your place. Why is he here?
Yeah.
How did he get here? Why him and not me? You also got to remember that when you inherit a new team, there's a couple of people in that group that wanted your job.
Well, yeah, that's
right.
True too.
So you got to deal with that.
There's so many things.
There's
so many. And I don't know. I mean, you tell me. I mean, you work in retail, and I'm sure you get a lot of young kids that come through and work for you. Do you find that generations work differently too? Like, yes. The older generation maybe has a different work ethic than the younger generation, or vice versa?
Which is why a successful leader has to be relatable. You have to be able to relate to them. Mm-hmm. You have to come down to their level and speak in the language that they understand. Oh, well, we're going to make a commercial break. All right, we're back. This is Cast the Craze, and we have a special guest on the phone.
Mr. Jun Nunez. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? I thought I was calling Grubhub. What's going on, man?
Oh, I'm hungry. I'm
gonna go hungry on this interview? Is that what you're telling me?
Jun, what's going on, bro?
How you doing, man? It's been a long time.
It has been a very long time. The gentleman who picked up the phone, his name is Sam Vera. He's the creator of the Catch the Craze podcast.
Oh, my salutations. He sounds so professional.
You heard him, right? He was like, wait, we're going to commercials.
I thought it was like the IRS. Oh, my God.
Where's my money?
Exactly. I was like, did I call is this Catch the Craze, or am I going to get arrested? What's going on?
Yeah, he gave you that quick side. Hey, listen, shut up. Wait. So what's going on? How you been? I've been good, man. How are you doing? 2019. We were talking earlier today. It's been very productive for you, huh?
It's been okay, man. It's been a kind of a game-changing year for me, or at least this past year. Now that we're in 2020,
yeah.
But it treated me well. It was a lot of hard work, but equally as rewarding.
There you go. And for the listeners who don't know who Jun is, Jun Nunez is a graphic artist. You've been in the industry for how long now, Jun? How long have you been doing graphic arts?
Oh Jesus! Don't make me go there. It's embarrassing. I'm not gonna reveal my age.
Okay, you're not
People just
gonna
log
do it.
off in a minute.
It's been a
They're
while.
like, be listening to this old fart. Can I say fart?
You can say fart.
Yeah, no.
You can say the other F word. You can say fart.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you told me that because that was my next. No. I've been in this graphic art field for a long time. My bread and butter has been within the apparel industry. So I've been a graphic designer, production artist, you name it. I've done it all within the apparel industry. But my first love, as you know well, is cartooning and comic books, man. Yes. And I've been in and out of that for as long as I can remember. It's my first love, along with illustration and anything cartooning or comic book related. So,
I know we got to go back. I mean, I'm gonna ask you about Cabeza in a few minutes, but just going back to like even the beginning, when you first started drawing, who were some of your influences, and where did you start? Where did you learn how to? Did you go to school for it? What were some of your influences growing up?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Actually, as I get this question a lot, and my first motivating force I have to give credit to my big brother. When I had the little brother syndrome, as anyone with a big brother probably knows what I'm talking about, in that you want to do everything that your big brother does. You want to be just like your big brother. So I would watch him draw in his early days, and it just made me draw. But the true catalyst, the true turning point for me was Star Wars. When I saw that first Star Wars movie, and yes, I'm dating myself with that, I know, but because I did see it in the theater. Oh,
I was like, don't say it, Jun. Don't say it.
Yeah. Hey, man, I could have lied to you and said I caught it on Netflix, but no, I saw it in the theater when it first came out.
Dude.
Yeah, that was the game changer for me, man. Star Wars just changed my life altogether, and I went from drawing all the things that my big brother was into. He was into graffiti. He was into all sorts of things like that, but and more street art and even some comic book art. But when I saw Star Wars on the screen, man, that's all I wanted to draw after that, and that got me even deeper into science fiction and that whole genre, as well as strengthening my love for the comic book medium.
Right.
Along with that, as far as influences, I think, I got to go with the standards. In those early days, it was still the house of Jack Kirby,
right?
For Marvel, Steve Ditko. There were artists such as John Buscema. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Please correct me if I'm not.
Right.
John Romita.
Right.
You name it, all those artists from the 60s and 70s that were just churning that work out like workhorses.
Right.
But damn, if they didn't influence me big time.
Absolutely. It's
if I'm prattling on, let me know.
No.
Stop me.
No, what I was gonna say was I was having a conversation with Anibal. Remember Anibal Arroyo, right? We were having a conversation. We were having a conversation about Star Wars, and we were talking about how maybe we got into it when we were too far, like we were older when we got into it, and we were like, I wonder what it was about Star Wars that got people so hooked on it. So what was it for? What was it about Star Wars that hooked you? Like what aspect of it? Was it the story? Was it the special effects that had never been seen before?
Well, yeah, you pretty much touched upon it right there. Star Wars was the whole package. It was not only visually something new that hadn't been done before. Of course, there were science fiction movies before that, and there were some damn good ones, some amazing ones. I mean, 2001 was groundbreaking, of course. But Star Wars had that mix of what 2001 had done, but also it just had that classic flavor, that classic mythology of a good story, and it had heroes and villains that you actually gave a darn about,
Right.
And that's really what grabbed my attention, that the basis of that story, how you were rooting for Luke Skywalker, you related to him. I grew up in Washington Heights, and I grew up there during the 70s and 80s. And, it was, for all intents and purposes, it was a pretty shady neighborhood at the time.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of craziness go down, but Star Wars took me out of that world immediately. That, along with comic books, showed me the potential of just having a strong moral ground,
right?
And that you had this hero in Luke Skywalker that you could relate to, where he came from a farming background, a simple life, where he didn't come from rich means. He wasn't this like swashbuckling hero. He had to work up to that,
And he didn't even know he didn't even know he was a hero. He was just an everyman at the beginning of the story.
Exactly, and that's what made that character so relatable.
No, that's amazing.
So, that's really what I loved about Star Wars.
So when you got the bug and you were like, wow, this is what I want to do, did you go to like then an art school and learned your craft, or where did you go from there?
Actually, no. I'm very much self-trained, and I still am. I've always been very pursuant of self-education in as far as creative pursuit. In other words, when you come from I guess, poor background, when we didn't have much, and of course, I come from a cultural background where, and I'm sure you could relate to this, is we come from parents who they don't relate to their kids telling them, I want to be a comic book artist.
Right.
So they don't know how to, they could maybe, if you're lucky, they could supply you with the tools you'll need to work on your craft. Yeah. But outside of that, I had to really do it myself. I just, from the time I was 4, I was looking into comic books and I was copying pictures from Jack Kirby and John Byrne and artists that influenced me in that field. But by the time I got to high school, and you start meeting other artists who have the same interests, and you could start comparing notes, and it was the first time I saw how bad I was. Literally bad. Like Jesus, I need to work on my hands. I need to work on my feet. So I was always good about getting, books in anatomy, and this was, of course, pre-internet. You couldn't just look up anatomy back then. You had to go to a library or buy a book on the subject matter, but yeah, man, I've always been self-taught, even up to this day. Whatever I need to know, I just pursue it like a hound and try to learn it the best I could.
Yeah, and then so I mean, obviously, being in the field that you're in, there's the programs are constantly changing, and there's constant upgrades and things like that. So you've had to keep up with all of that stuff, right? As the years have come along.
Oh yeah. That's a good point. You go from working with a pencil and paper and some ink and brushes, to having to learn this new tool, which back then was, entering the digital age with computers. Yeah. And I could still remember getting my first Mac and just staring at it like it was Satan or something. I was afraid of that thing. My cousin was the one that actually turned me on and said, he saw me doing all this comic book work by hand. Yeah. And he was like, you could do that in half the time on a computer. And I was like, that's blasphemous. Don't talk to me about that. But I had a turn. I took a turn for the better, and finally I turned on the computer. And just like I trained myself in learning how to draw with pen and ink, I did the same with the digital tools at hand at the time. And I really haven't looked back. I mean, 99.9% of my work is digital now, no matter if it does look like it still has a human feel to it.
Yeah, no, I see some of the stuff. Like you've done a lot of posters for like some rock groups. I saw there's this one poster for scroll down a little bit there, Sam, for Piston. It's called Piston, a UK band that you did a poster for. Yeah. We were talking about it. Because you have like a progression shot of it, and we noticed that you have a shot in there where it looks like it's in pencil. It's like in red pencil, and you have all of this shading going on. Can you tell us a little bit about the process? Do you color over that shading, or how do you do that? How do you get that shading to pop out again like that?
Well, my process hasn't changed much from when I was a kid. I'll be honest with you. It's just the tools that have changed. Mm-hmm. So if I wasn't able to achieve the same effects that I could with a physical paper and pencil, I wouldn't have bothered going to digital. I would have just stuck to those tools. But once the technology caught up to be able to achieve that, I was all in. So what you see, I love when artists show their process. So I kind
Yeah,
of try to do the
I
same on
love
my
that
own
too.
Instagram feed. Um, and it leads to an exchange with other artists, and
Yeah,
trying to find each other's secrets and picking each other's brains. But yes,
right.
in that particular piece, excuse me, that particular piece, yes, the pencil sketching that you see, it's all digital. I use
Oh wow.
I'm on a Mac, of course, but my favorite app to use is Clip Studio. I
Mm.
think they used to call it
Y-
Mango Studio a few years
Right.
back,
Yeah. 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 Okay. So yeah. Yep. Yep.
and yeah, and it's basically it's very similar to something like Photoshop, but it's really more geared towards illustration and comic book work.
Mm.
So it's very intuitive for those purposes. And once I discovered that program, I really haven't turned back. It's what I use for most of my work.
Right.
Yeah. So everything you see in those posters, my comic book work, it pretty much is predominantly Clip Studio.
Wow. So this is all done on the computer. You drew this on the computer, and then you basically digitally painted over what looks like pencils, but they are there's just stuff that you did on the computer.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, dude.
I literally just build it up. I keep you know, with a piece such as that Piston poster.
Hmm.
Each poster that I do, the whole poster thing has been a new endeavor for me. It's
Yeah.
something that I've always wanted to do, and that's why I said last year was a game changer, and that I had the opportunity to do these kind of tour posters
Right.
for touring bands. And I'm very, very much excited about that because I get to flex creative muscles that I don't usually get to doing any kind of cartooning or even apparel with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So um, every poster that I've done, including that Piston poster, it's like it's a new opportunity for me to try something different. So that with that particular poster, um, once I got the shading done, pencil and that red pencil that you see,
Yeah.
I I I didn't know where I was going to go with it. When I start a piece like that, I kind of have a vague sense of what I want it to look like, but it's going to change during
Yeah.
the process.
Right. Yeah.
And when I got to that particular point with the pencils, I was like, oh man, I kind of like this look. Let me just kind of keep it and try to work with it. And the result was that poster that you got, which I was actually very happy with.
Awesome. So when because you've been doing digital, I mean, graphic design, and like you said, in the apparel business, without the training, like you being self-taught, how did you catch that big break to work for like a company that said, all right, you know what, we're going to give you a shot, despite the fact that maybe you didn't go to SVA or anything like that? What got you that chance? How did you get that? How did you land that first gig?
Oh man, it's just a grind. You really have to network as much as possible. It's very easy for us creative types to ourselves in a room and just draw all day, and there's nothing wrong with that because you're pursuing and learning your craft. You're supposed to do that. That is very much the main part of it. But you do have to take time out to network with other artists
Right.
and people on the business side of the fence.
Yeah.
That's just as important. So, my first graphics jobs, once I learned, well, it's funny. The reason I started working digitally was in pursuing a career in comic books.
Right.
But what ended up happening was learning such apps such as Photoshop, Illustrator, etc. It allowed me the opportunity to do other kinds of work, which is how I got into the apparel industry to begin with.
Hmm.
Um, and once certain people took notice of that, I was invited in that door. They opened the door for me and said, wow, you'd be great for this type of work for this company.
Wow.
And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I have a career within the apparel industry.
Yeah, it's all about that
So,
network. It's all about putting yourself out there, and doing what you got to do
oh
to
man,
get in. Yeah.
you know this well as a writer yourself within
Yep.
the comic book field, man.
Yep.
It's it's and you're a damn good writer. You're one of the
Thank
best
you,
I
man.
know.
Appreciate
I
that.
love your stuff. I was just looking at Russ again the other day. It's one of those paperbacks that's always on my table because I
Ah,
just love it. It's
thanks,
such a
man. I
great story.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Um, Oh well, I gotta kiss your ass while I'm on the air. But no, that's totally untrue, man. No, I really do love that work. I always have.
Thanks, man.
I've always respected your work. You're such a great writer, and I hope to read more.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but you know how that works, man.
Yeah.
You gotta hustle. One thing I remember about you guys, one thing I've always respected about you guys, that when you were doing the mass media thing, is how you guys really hustled at conventions, on social media. You were all over the place, and that was like, that's a grind, man. People don't know it takes time and effort to do that stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It is, man. And you guys did it well.
No, and that's when you introduced us to Cabeza, which is what I wanted to ask you about. So what's going on with Cabeza? Are you still working on that, or?
Oh, Cabeza, it's one of those on and off things. If for those, and I'm sure that's most people out there who don't know what the heck we're talking about. I self-published a comic book years back called Cabeza, and there was a story written and drawn by moi. But as probably George and others can tell you who've ventured into self-publishing, doing it all yourself is very difficult.
Very difficult.
And I don't mean that to dissuade anyone from pursuing that. Just know that you really got to go in with a plan.
Right.
And it's something that I kind of learned the hard way. I'm kind of hard-headed, and I try to be a perfectionist, and that entails me trying to have as much creative control as I can. But that can be to my own detriment as well. So what happened with Cabeza in particular was I started it, and it started out as being a 6-issue miniseries, which I had fully plotted, and I was halfway into issue 3 drawing it when what happens, and I'm sure as a storyteller yourself, you're probably familiar with this, in that as you're writing a story, you start out with certain plot points with certain protagonists, with main characters, but then you find that you can twist and turn the stories into other directions.
Right.
And that's what happened with Cabeza. Certain other characters started to gain my interest, and I kind of lost focus of the story itself. So I said, you know what? It's time for me to put this on pause and give it the break it needs before I can come back and do it in the way it deserves to be done.
Right.
So I will return to Cabeza. I love him. He's always lurking in the dark corners of my mind. But I think everything has a time and place, and it's worth waiting for something to do them right.
No, I hear you, man. I can't wait till you actually get back into it, because I remember it was oversized. Like it was a different size too. It wasn't even like regular comic book size. It was like oversized book, and it just the flow of it was so, like, I don't know, it was just cool, man. It was like you were reading, and before you knew it was over. It was really well done, and I really hope that you get back to it.
Well, man, I really appreciate hearing that. I as someone whose work I highly respect, that's high praise. So
yeah, man.
I never thought of myself as much as a writer. It's something I still struggle with. It's something that I'm still in the process of learning. I'm a lot more comfortable on the artistic side of things.
Side, yeah.
But when I do return, because you did make that offer to me at one point, and I'm going to hold you to it. When you did say you would if I needed help on the writing end of it, so I will. Your brain
for sure. Yeah, June, for sure. We definitely have to work on something together, for sure.
And now you put it on the air.
It's on. That's it.
Because it's done.
That's why you came on the show.
Know what you've done. Yeah, exactly. I had an agenda.
You had an agenda. Oh man, June, listen, I'm running out of time here for the interview, but we definitely have to get together, bro, as soon as possible, because I mean, this isn't enough time. If you want to come back on the show, please let me know. We'll definitely have you back, and we can talk a little bit more about, everything else that's going on. But thank you so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, and it's just been great just to catch up with you.
Yeah,
we do have to catch up, so let me know anytime you want, man. I'm available.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'll hit you up on Instagram, and we'll get together.
Sounds great.
All right,
thank you so much. Have a good night, guys.
You got it, buddy. Take care.
Take care.
There is no better way to start the day than with a cup of Joe and an episode of Catch the Craze.
I'm so crazy. You so crazy. Crazy. Who's the craziest? I'm so crazy. You so crazy. Crazy. Who's the craziest? I'm so crazy. You so crazy.
That was a great episode.
Yeah, no, that was cool, man. Jun's been around for a while, man, and he's been doing this for a long time. A lot of his work, I'm a big fan of it.
Sorry, my bad.
It's all good. So yeah, Jun, follow him. He's got a website, junnunez.tumblr, TUMBLR.com. Check out his work on the website. Again, that's Jun, JUNNUNEZ.tumblr, TUMBLR.com. Follow him on there. Check out his stuff. He's a really, really excellent writer and artist. He says he's not a good writer, but his story that I read was really good. So yeah, it's a grind. I mean, when we talk about being an extrovert, when you're a creative sometimes, and when you do this on your own, it's hard to get a lot of that stuff out, and we know how that is, and we fall victim to not having finished product out there. And that's essentially what's happened. I mean, because he is, he's a great artist and he does this for a living. He does graphic design work for a living. So it's not like, he's just trying to make it. So as far as I'm concerned, he's already made it.
Right.
But the comic book industry is a whole different animal. And, when you're doing it alone, it's even harder to get your stuff out there. So kudos to Jun for coming on the show. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. And hopefully we'll have him on the show back again.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a really good interview. I think the guy's really talented. Excuse my language. Excuse me. I think the guy's very talented, and I think I think it would be good to have him back on the show to get some more in depth. You guys met at which convention?
I've known Jun for a while. I don't even remember what convention it was. But yeah, I met him a while ago, and he. We went to his house. They had like a drawing cipher, and I went with Anibal, and everybody was just drawing and doing their thing. It was fun. He's a really good guy. But definitely we'll definitely have him back on again. And next week we're gonna have an artist for Image. She's got a book called Coyotes that I actually just purchased yesterday. It's coming. Yeah, I definitely want to read it. So she'll be on the show, and and then we'll have our September, our February lineup coming up.
Yes. Again, so all right. So I'm Kev Sims, the Crazy Man. If you want to get on the show, we're looking at locking in our February, March, and April. Yeah, calendar. Calendar. Stop being shy. Just say hi, and we'll put you on the show. For all on our next show, I will give my thanks to all of the new Twitter followers. My Twitter's following is growing, which is really good. And so is the Instagram. So I thank you all for following, connecting with Catch the Craze. If you like the show, we are on multiple platforms. Subscribe, whether it's on iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, our YouTube channel. We're looking to grow our YouTube channel. So if you're listening to the show and you haven't, you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, support your boys. This is free content. You're not paying anything. You're getting some stuff back. And if you want to hear anything on the show, let us know. Let us know how you thought about this show. We talked about, leadership. How do you know if you were a leader or not, right? I'm Sam the Crazy Man Vera.
George the Dreamer Medina. Oh.
Say what?
Eats.
Dreamer.
Oh my God. You know what? I'll say George, you say Dreamer, and then I'll say Medina. We'll do that, right? All right. George,
Dreamer,
Medina.
Dreamer.
You're always down for that kind of stuff. I love it. Oh man, signing off.
We're signing
Peace.
off, and I gotta remember what
it's just not.
Crazy. I'm so crazy. You so crazy.
Acquiesce.
Crazy.
No, I was talking about my friend Acquiesce. I met him the other. Say my name, say my name. Right?
This is what you were thinking?
He described me. He said, I'm the...
What? Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze. To Catch the Craze. You are listening to Catch the Craze on Catch the Craze. You're listening to Catch the Craze.